All right, welcome everyone to the OPP podcast, 5th episode. We have special guest John Rallo from Shogun Fights, Ground Control, and the MMA world. Thank you for coming on the show, John. Appreciate you coming in.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys.
We know this is your busy time of year and everything, so most people that know you probably know you from either Shogun Fights, Ground Control, 98 Rock, Barks. So we're going to ask questions maybe, people that don't know you can get to know you a little bit. So.
Sure.
All right, so first I want to say, what age were you when you started in MMA, and how did you get started?
Believe it or not, I was 29. So, yeah, I got started in it. Football, I had wrecked my foot, had a bad ankle injury. Like you guys know Ryan McGowan, obviously. Had the same injury he had. Where
he played RB the Sunday club, right?
Yeah, he did. I did too back in the day, but my foot was basically turned backwards on me. So it ended my my football days. And I wrestled in school, on the streets. I was bouncing and all that kind of nonsense. So people, when the UFC came out, were like, man, you should do this, you should do this. And for me, I knew what 2 minutes of wrestling, how cardio intensive that was. And these dudes were going, there was no time limits back then, half-hour long match. And I was thinking in my head, well, it looks like fun, but goddamn, it's an awful long time. I was get tired 2 minutes, the 2 minute period. High school was 3 2-minute periods for wrestling. So, I was watching it. Hoist was winning all of them. As he continued to win, obviously I was fascinated with it. And when he beat Dan Severn, and he triangled him and finished him, I was fascinated by the fact that a 170-pound dude could beat a 260-pound Olympic wrestler. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at this going, man, that guy's a better wrestler than I ever was. I need to learn what this little dude knows, because I'm not trying to get my ass twisted up by some little skinny guy, because I don't know what he does. And that was kind of how it started.
So 29 years old, you see it, you like it. How'd you go about it? Who trained you? Were there schools around back then?
No. I used to roll around by myself, and then I met a buddy named Cliff, and we would go to these places to claim they had it. Pretty much go in and either whip the asses of whoever was claiming they were teaching jiu-jitsu, or they wouldn't even train with us because how big we were and stuff. Cliff's another big dude. And what I did was finally, Cliff had done a competition too, and he had trained in the gi with, as the uniform. And there was a tournament. It was the first one they ever had at Essex Community College. So, 16 people in the weight class, which is unheard of for heavyweights. And there were some legit guys there. Yamasaki had some guys there. Lloyd Irvin had some guys there. And the referee was actually a Hickson Gracie rep. His name's Mark Finley. So I went in, no training really, no coaching, and I wound up winning the tournament. And I didn't tap anybody. I just outpointed people, with my wrestling. I would take them down and gorilla my way out of shit. And the referee after the tournament, he goes, hey, where do you train? And I said, I don't. And he's like, are you kidding me? He goes, you need to come to my gym. He was actually at Baltimore Boxing Club at the time, and teaching there a few days a week. I went down, trained with Mark. We wrestled around. And when he wrestled with me, he's not a big dude either, he's 160 pounds. So when we were wrestling, he didn't get me in anything, I didn't get him in anything. And when I finished, I was kind of like a referee's position in wrestling, turtle position. And when I'm thinking, well, I didn't get caught in nothing, and I'm in a good spot here. And he was like, not bad for no hands, right? He was holding his belt. So, so I was like, whoa, that blew my mind. I was sold right there. And I rolled down there with probably 8 or 10 of my friends, and we all joined up. And what's funny is, two weeks into it, Mark
Did you have
said
to recruit, hey, we're doing this now?
Nah, I think, once I started doing it, and then, your friends start hearing it, people start talking, so, the word kind of spreads. But, I wanted to do it just because I was fascinated, the fact that, a guy, 170-pound guy like Hoist could run through Kenshan.
The whole format was so good. That was pretty much a
style
tough man contest. All different styles. Big fat guys fighting little skinny guys. That was so entertaining.
No weight classes, no styles. So, Mark, was a Hickson Gracie representative. He was a blue belt under him, or a purple belt at the time. I think he was blue. And he was my teacher. And a couple weeks later, I did another tournament locally and won. And then we started traveling out of town. So I went to New York, and I won the New York City Grappling Challenge, and I went to New Jersey. And Dan Mergliata, Big Dan, the ref, bald guy that refs in the UFC, big heavyweight guy, he was running a tournament called the East Coast Grapplers Cup, and I wound up beating two of Renzo's guys in that tournament, one in the finals of the heavyweights and one in the absolute, which is like all the champions kind of get together and wrestle. And so I met Renzo there. He offered for me to come up and train, and at the time, like Mark and I are up there by ourselves, and when you wrestled, like they had one match set up, and I mean the entire mat just surrounded by Renzo's team, and they're back in the old days, they beat the mats and chant. They would like copy off of what Brazilians are doing when they're competing. So he offered for me to come up, and I was like, yeah, we're ready to go up there. Sooner or later somebody's going to get me. You know what I mean? I got a whole bunch of guys, and then like 3 weeks later, I won this tournament called the Grappler's Quest, and Renzo came and watched again, and then him and Ricardo Almeida came and watched the final. I tapped this dude, and then he offered to train me, gave me his home phone number, cell phone number. So I kind of talked to Mark about switching affiliations. He was under Hickson, who was in LA, and Renzo's in Manhattan. So we switched, and the rest is kind of history. I took over the gym, and I wound up giving Mark his black belt, my original teacher. He told me too, he goes, you're my ticket to a black belt. So, but Renzo, I've been with Renzo ever since. My first practice with him, he gave me my blue belt. He thought it because he asked Mark, what's his rank? And Mark goes, well, I want to talk to you about that. He's still a white belt. And Renzo's like, it's fucking ridiculous, you're a blue belt. So, and I've been, basically Team Renzo Gracie ever since.
So then you go with that. When you sign on with a guy like that, like the doors got to open. Then what happened? Like what kind of tournaments were you going to after that? Were they not directly the UFC, but UFC?
Oh yeah. My first thing Renzo did with me, I was still I was learning at that point. So it was my first amateur fight. Like I was with Renzo. 2 weeks later, he cornered me at the first amateur fight I had. So. But yeah, he opens tons of doors. I was able to do like Abu Dhabi trials and, fought, WEC, all these other big shows. And I mean, if you're on Renzo's team and Renzo gives you the blessing, like you're in, you don't have to, there's no audition process and, and things of that sort. So, it was pretty cool. But, and back then, I got to come up with Matt Serra and Ricardo Almeida and Rodrigo Gracie. So all these other dudes who, Matt and Rodrigo both fought in the UFC. Anybody in New York that was coming to train, they were coming to Renzo. So, I really had the good fortune of being able to train with tons and tons of, the world's best guys because they would come in there and train,
All right, so your career, you do the MMA thing, and then you get an injury. Did you get an injury and you had to stop fighting?
Oh yeah, well, like everybody talks about this injury. I tore my ACL. You know what I mean? So I was training for a fight. Guy was like kind of around my waist, and I was, fighting the hands, hipped out. And when I went to pivot, my foot just got stuck in the mat, and my knee popped. So what happened was, obviously, I couldn't do that fight, and then. Like literally 2 weeks after I had surgery is when I get the call to do the Ultimate Fighter, and they did heavyweights and they did 155 pounders, I believe, together back then. Like that was the season that Rashad wound up winning. That's how long ago it was. Wow. And the crazy part was Binky Jones. He's obviously one of our guys. Binky and I would have been on the same show. He actually was an alternate. And here's a nice piece of trivia. He was roommates as an alternate with Eddie Alvarez. He didn't make the show either. So, and we knew Eddie because he's a Philly guy. We all competed and fought the same things. So if I was healthy, I was on, and Binky would, could have possibly been on. It could have been both of us on the same show. But yeah, actually, there's a picture. I'll show it to you after. of me and Binky up in New York with Dana and Matt Serra and all when they came up for a tryout, because I wanted to show him my leg and go, yo, I'm not no bitch.
Right.
I couldn't do it because of my knee. And he said to me, he goes, John, he goes, we know you're not. He goes, and we know nobody's going to fake an injury to not be on our show, you know what I mean? But, you know, but it was at that time that I kind of made a decision, do I go into business or, you know, do I still chase the fight thing? And back then, money wasn't the same. You know, in the time that I hurt myself, I wasn't at the school all the time, you know, because of competing and things. So when I injured the leg, I probably had about 40 students. Within like 6 months, I got like 100 people now. So then you start seeing the money go up on the other side. I go, do I build a residual income or do I chase my ego? Like I had already competed against many of, like in grappling with the best guys. You know, again, the good fortune I had of being at Henzo's. Like, fortunately, I didn't have this ego, like I need to get out there to get it done. Like I knew I could hold my own. I got respect from all of these guys, you know what I mean? I'm all friends with them. So, you know, for me, it actually was the smarter decision to try to grow the school, you know, which now we have 3. And to get mixed martial arts legalized so that, you know, guys here would have an opportunity I never did. And really, in the end, Binky wound up having it. But back then, you know, when I stopped, Binky was like the torchbearer right around here. And, you know, we had to travel all over the place. You know, he couldn't fight here in his home state. So for me, it was important to try to get it done. And that way, you know, the guys that are coming up around here have the opportunity. And because we have this outlet, I mean, it takes time to develop talent in the areas, like these areas like New Jersey, California, and they had schools 10 years before we had them really down here, because they like, first of all, anywhere warm, California, Florida, because the Brazilians like the warm weather. I always tell Henzo, thank God you don't mind the cold, because who knows what would have happened if not, you know?
So after, you know, you start, obviously it wasn't called ground control back then. Did you take over for someone else?
Yeah. Mark Finley, it was his school, and I think it was like Baltimore Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Club or Baltimore Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy, something like that. And that now Sullivan, I think is what they call their school, Baltimore BJJ. But you know, we started, it was Baltimore, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then as I was with Henzo, started training. One of my best friends in this stuff was a guy named Sean Alvarez. And when I met Sean, he just came back from Abu Dhabi. He lived out there. He was one of the sheiks, like started an Abu Dhabi combat club. Sean was the like the #2 ranked heavyweight in the world at the time. He lost to Mark Kerr 2 separate years in the finals, so he was #2 to Kerr. And you know, Sean and I used to train together all the time, and we kind of started it. He had a gym, and his idea was to call it ground control, and I liked it. So I didn't like his logo, so we changed some. Like I went from the one that was there and moved it to the one that was up there. But you know, he had ground controls in New York, and I had some ground controls down here. Sean eventually moved to Mexico. He lives in Mazatlan, like the sheik has this giant resort. He's got a school down there now. But you know, I kept the ground control thing going. So, you know, now we have, you know, we have 3, and this one, like I was telling you guys beforehand, we're getting ready to move to a new location at 8303 Gillespie Highway into a much bigger facility.
All right, so you got the school obviously going, it's growing, and then how did you decide that you wanted to try to legalize fighting here in Maryland?
I always had that in the back of my head, because I was busy traveling around coaching all the time, you know, on my own side competing, you know, then go and you watch your friends compete, you have to go all over the place. So in my mind, I always thought, like, why isn't it legal here? Like it should be. And the way the law was written here, the whole reason I had to lobby, like in New Jersey, they can institute a regulation because their New Jersey state law stipulates that the New Jersey State Athletic, or I think they call it the New Jersey Athletic Control Board, has the ability to regulate combat sports. So as long as they say we can regulate it, it falls under their purview. Here, the way the law is written, like every other great thing in Maryland, the law here said you can box, you can kickbox, or you can wrestle here. They were the 3 sports that the commission could regulate. So I physically had to lobby to have the law changed to add mixed martial arts to that verbiage in order to be able to do mixed martial arts here. And then, you know, you had to get the rules straight. But yeah, so I mean, what I really did, I went in, talked to Pat Pinella, he's the executive director of the athletic commission, and I just went to him and asked him a simple question. What do I need to do? What information do you need so that you'll feel comfortable regulating? You know, and he gave me some things. I answered some questions for him because they really, you know, all he knew was boxing. They didn't know anything else. And I have a great relationship with New Jersey. A gentleman there, Nick Lembo, is their attorney, and he's the guy who helped write the unified rules for MMA. And because I competed so much and all up there, like Nick's a friend. So what I did was I utilized that relationship. I had Nick give me information because he'd be called to go to other states. So I got a Johns Hopkins study on the safety of it versus other sports and all these other things. And that's, you know, I utilized that stuff. And then I had him and his doctors talk to our commission because you'd rather hear it from a peer than from the MMA guy, you know what I mean? And honestly, thank God it all worked out. I mean, we got put through in one session, which was amazing in itself, you know, because most laws don't get passed around here the first time.
No, definitely.
So that was a Martin O'Malley sign-off.
Yeah, it was.
Leprechaun.
Yeah, you know what? With that, and that's a whole backstory. I mean, my uncle was the secretary or commissioner of labor for him. So once I talked to the commission, I go to him. What do you think the chances are? So he goes and starts asking people. He comes back, he goes, man, I didn't get any of the pushback that I thought. He said, I think we have a shot. Then he puts me on with a lawyer. You know, I talk to that guy. He comes back to me, man, my daughter is a big fan of this and I don't even know it. And he goes, I was a martial artist, so he started to get into it and it just kind of snowballed. I went from him, he's like, look, I'm good in the city in here, but we need a guy that's good in Annapolis. So they put me on with a guy named Tim Perry, who was my lobbyist for that. And, you know, together, you know, they pretty much got, you know, I gave them what they needed and everybody got the work done. So it got, I think May of 2008 was like bill signing. October of 2008 it was law. And then September of 2008 is when all the rules were done and we could actually hold an event. And that October of 2009 was the first one.
So the first question, usually in Maryland, is can we make money off of it?
Yeah.
So you had to get somebody lobbying them and say, you guys can make money.
Yeah, this is good. This is exactly how I approached it and what I recommended, like back in the day when we were telling people how to do it. Because when the UFC came here, they were like, God damn. Like Mark Ratner, he goes, man, I wish everybody was like you. He goes, we didn't have to come. Everything was done. You know, but for me, I wanted them here because I wanted the state to see they would be interested to come here. Again, the money. And we went through economic ways and means.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I did, was I went in and said, why you're losing all this licensing money, you're losing all the ancillary stuff, you know, when we hold an event, we hold an event here, people come and get hotel rooms, the bars are getting it, the restaurants are getting it, the arena, you know what I mean, has a guy,
people flying for UFC.
I'm saying, you know, dude, when the UFC came here, I want to say it impacted the city that week over $25 million.
We're going to come back to that because I have a good question about that. So Shogun fights, you got 20 under your belt so far. How much work is involved in, you know, setting up the event from, you know, when you post a date till the night before or even the day of?
So physical work only really for me, then like I still help the guys set up the cage and stuff. So, but it honestly, it's more, it's work. It's just mental stress, you know, because you're dealing with fighters. Sometimes you got, you know, an injury, you got to replace a guy and it's only like 2 weeks out and how am I going to do this? And now I got to get airfare. The guy was local. He can't sell tickets. This guy was. So it does get to be a little hassle in that fashion, but I mean, still beats a 9 to 5, you know, for me anyway. I don't follow orders well, and
none of us do.
Right. So, you know, you know, I have a great team. The guys who help me, like my production team, Tim Connor's my production manager, and then, you know, he handles getting my audio guys together, video guys together, the lighting people together. I got Vance Van Horn and Mike Van Horn from Sheffield who run the TV side of things. They handle the production of the TV show, the graphics, doing the audio for that, editing everything. So, and quite frankly, like, I don't know much about that. I don't know much really. When I walk into an arena, I can't go in and say, "Hey, you need this, you need this." So I stay in my lane. You know, like they give me the respect and they'll ask me my opinion, but unless I really have one, 9 out of 10 times I'm like, "Man, you're the expert, so I'm going to defer to you." You know,
let them do their thing.
And I think it makes, you know, I'll give them my input, and if I'm wrong, you know, I'm willing to listen. But most of the time, I just tell them, "Hey, man, whatever you think," because I don't know. You know, I'd be making a guess. You know, the only good thing I think that I have for the promoting angle of the show is I fought, so I understand from a fighter perspective how to try to treat the guys. I'm a coach, so I understand from their perspective the things that they need when they're in town doing a show. I'm a fan, so I understand from that perspective, like kind of what I want when I go to the show. So I feel it gives me a unique perspective because I've been able to wear, you know, almost been able to look at it from all these different angles, you know, versus just kind of a one direction.
Absolutely. So you obviously, your school, you have 3 different locations. You got plans to expand any more than it is right now?
Possibly. I had one of my guys, my partner in Owings Mills is Ryan Mackin. Give him a shout out. He was voted like Coach of the Year for wrestling, not just in Baltimore County, but he won it for like Varsity Sportsnet as well. So Ryan's a good dude. Used to fight for us, former state champion wrestler and all that. But yeah, Ryan has been talking to me, and we're looking, honestly, just had an email today, but we're looking in the Hunt Valley area is where he lives out that way, and the kid that wants to get into it with him. So if there's a new one that opens another location, not just this one being a move of a lateral move, yeah, I think Hunt Valley would be the spot.
So what was your vision when you started the school, and what's your vision now?
I didn't have any vision when I started the school. My vision was, I said no, I don't want the school. Mark Finley had it at the time, and what happened, he was he was doing defensive tactics training for Anne Arundel County, and in order to be a full-time instructor, you have to be a police officer. So he had to go to the academy to do that stuff, so basically was going to turn the school over to me. And at the time, I mean, it was 3 days a week, it's not a big deal. And I told him, I said, man, I don't know if I'm, really into that. I said, I'm going to be traveling all the time. So he's like, no, you should do it, And I mean, it turned out, like Mark said, he says all the time, he says, because he wasn't a business guy at all. And every year we had like a Christmas party, and we do promotions at the Christmas party, and every year he just goes, man, you imagine, we were in the bottom of the YMCA, like literally, we would keep our bags off the floor, because if you left them on the floor, you might take some roaches home with you. And I mean, we were next to a pool, so you're breathing all this chlorine air in. It was nasty, but everybody loved it, and now boom, it's fast forward 20 years, and we got 3 gyms, and tons of guys have fought, and I probably had 10 or 15 black belts just at this location. And when I was growing up in this sport, I had to drive to New York to go see a real deal black belt.
So you obviously have tons of students. I mean, how are they progressing? Do you got any UFC hopefuls maybe?
Oh yeah, we have right now Tucker Lutz is the 145-pound champ at Shogun. He's actually getting ready to fight for the 155-pound belt here. So he's a guy. What is Tucker now? 6-1, 7-1, and he's fighting a guy named Cole Presley, who's super tough. If he beats Cole impressively, I think, you could see Tucker in the Contender Series, and if you win there, then jump up. We have another kid, Jesse Stern. Jesse, I want to say, is probably around 9-2. He has a victory over Mike Easton, who, Mike was obviously a top 10 ranked guy in the UFC at one time. Him and Mike it was a good match, so anybody beating Mike has obviously got that the ability. And Skylar, a kid named Skylar Sutho that we have. Last show, he was probably the most popular guy. His fight was a real good fight, and Skylar is equally as dangerous on his feet as he is on the ground. So I really believe he's a guy that has some ability. And you know, if you want to go to Japan, I told Ryan like he could be if he really ever got serious, like you know the show Risen, because you know, he follows stuff. Yeah. Henzo, I sent Henzo a picture of Ryan and go, hey, what about this guy in Japan? And he goes, yeah, what do you fucking feed them guys? But he says to me, he goes, yeah, monster. He goes, good timing. He's going to dinner with the guy. So I get a call the next day from one of the guys from Risen, and I told him, look, I got it super heavy. I said he's raw, you know, but he's very athletic. He has a look. I go, you know, he needs some time to develop. I said, I'm not sending him over here to get murdered by some world champ kickboxer, you know. I said, but, you know, you want to get Bob Sapp, you want to get Giant Silver, you want to get all these, you know, your freak show, Yokozuna and whoever else you want to grab, go get them. And, you know, so I sent them tapes, which they liked. And, you know, but then they tried to call me to have him come over, and I didn't like the opponent. And then Ryan hurt his leg, and now, you know, so really it's on Ryan. You know, if he really wants to, if he wanted to do something like that, he 100%, I believe he still could. You know, but Japan's where it's at because there's really no super heavyweight division here in the States.
They like a good freak show in Japan.
You know it.
All right, so we did have the UFC event here. I went to it. It was great. It was phenomenal. Why haven't we had one since then? It had to make money. I was there. I looked around the city. I went to the event. There was people everywhere.
Oh, they killed it. It was the second highest grossing event ever at the arena. It was behind the Rolling Stones. It was like a couple, you know, dollars behind them. I'm almost positive. I wish if I would have known you were going to ask that question, but I could have swore Frank said, the GM of the arena, Frank Remish, that the city impact, economic impact of having them here for that week was over $25 million to the city.
There was stuff going on everywhere.
Yeah. They killed it. They loved it. Dana loved it. You know, I think that there's a couple things that kept them, you know, from coming back here. Number one, too, and rightfully so, the arena's not having no fake fight nights and stuff like that. You know, those shows, everybody hasn't been to a fight night or you've been to a pay-per-view at a UFC, they're different. You know, the fight nights are way smaller venues, normally way less people there. They did one in DC and it got like 6,000 to 7,000 people to it. So when I told Frank, I told him, like, don't let them give you stiff you with a fight night. If they come here, make them do a pay-per-view so it's worth your while. And that's what he got. He got Jones and Glover Teixeira. But they were awesome. The UFC worked with me. I had to move off my date. They agreed to, they allowed me to advertise at the fight, which nobody's advertising. They let us put posters up in the arena. Dana, I sold tickets for them. Like I did a Shogun code and you could get tickets before they were on sale. And in one day they used that code. We did $116,000 in sales or something. And, you know, they put us in UFC magazine and, you know, things to do while you're in Baltimore. Come see Renzo Gracie black belt, John Rallo at ground control and see how he got mixed martial arts legalized. Like they talked us up real well. You know, and what else did they? Dana gave me those seats. Like I was sitting with him, you know what I mean? And Lorenzo, literally, me and my girl, my wife Angel are here. And Dana and Lorenzo, like when we came in, Dana said to me, "Are these good enough?" Because what happened, they took me to the press conference to meet him, and I had met him through Joe a few times, and I met him at, you know, seen him in Vegas at restaurants, but you know, I like never hanging out with him like we're boys. And you know, I seen him at the weigh-ins a ton, you know, when I'm there with Joe. So Dana, when I met him afterwards, I said, "Look, man." He was like, you know, is there anything we can do for you? And I said, well, look, I said, I don't ask you guys for shit. I got legalized, just sold $100,000 and some in tickets for you. I said, all I want is seats in your section so that the people here can see that you and I have a relationship. He was like, done. That's awesome. Picked his phone up, called his assistant, put me on the phone with her, and handled it. You know, so it was real cool. And then Rogan, you know, gives me a shout out on the live broadcast, like that, you know, they wouldn't be here unless it was for my friend John Rallo and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, Joe shouted me out on the card. Like, it really, for me, it couldn't have went better. It was a great night of
For the
fights.
city, it couldn't have went better.
Yeah, it was awesome. Everybody had a blast. You know, the city, it did real well. There's multiple things, if you know, but I would say probably thing number one is a 10%, you know, wrestling and boxing tax. So when you come here, whatever your gate is, it's not exactly 10%, even though it says 10%. It's like it's formula, but it's real close. So, you know, if they come here and do $2 million at the door, 200 grand, well, you know, right off the top. So, you know, that's and that's before you pay your bills. You know, and you get taxed on everything else. So I probably would say could be a lot of the tax thing. That Dana loved it. He said, he was like, man, you know, they literally sold out in like a couple hours or something. So, you know, but what you have to see with they finally started going back to Philly. If you remember, Philly, the first one sold out immediately. It was Anderson Silva and Forrest Griffin. They came back with a fight night. The next time it did like 6,000 people, and they never went back until ownership changed hands. So, and the other problem, being in this corridor, you have DC, you have Baltimore, you have Philly. They see us always the same. You know, even when I did the touring, you know, the bodyguard and shit, they see them really as the same. So if you're in one,
places within like an hour and a half.
yeah, you know, because they know if they hit one, those people, which, you know, you're driving, it's an hour and a half this way, hour that way. So, you know, people will come to you, and now if they really, you know, if they got a big fan base or something, they'll hit it, or they'll go, and then, you know, on the second pass or something, they'll come back through. You know, but that's honestly probably the biggest reason, you know, would be the taxes.
So, broad question, and putting you on the spot a little bit, but in your opinion, who is the best of all time fighter?
For me, probably George St. Pierre. I mean, obviously John Jones is up there too, but you know, with all the roid shit, you know, does it taint his thing? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So for me, George, I thought George was the most dominant. I mean, he beat everybody that they put in front of him. He beat everybody different ways. You know, if you were Josh Koscheck, like I use him as an example a lot. Look at the first Koscheck fight. He went out there and out-wrestled Koscheck and beat him down. Next fight, Koscheck's all ready for the wrestling match, and George jabs him in his eye so much he breaks his orbital bone. So George had the ability to take down Thiago and whoop his ass, or he had the ability to kick Matt Hughes in his grill and knock him out. You know what I mean? So he's I think, and now you look at what he did over a stretch of time, he was very dominant. Rarely did you really see him lose rounds and stuff like that. And here he comes out of retirement, comes back, and I know Bisping's Bisping. You know, and I no disrespect to Mike Bisping, I think I liked him on the Ultimate Fighter. I picked him to win that show. You know, I don't consider him A+, you know, like a top, you know.
He's not a main event guy.
Yeah, you know, but hey, he knocked out Luke Rockhold and he was a champ. But George come in and choked him unconscious. You know, knocked him down, choked him unconscious. And he was taking like little details, man. He took Mike Bisping down in the center of the cage a couple times. Mike Bisping, go back and watch him fight Rashad Evans. Rashad's an NCAA champion and could not hold him down. You know, couldn't really keep him down. So here's George moving up a weight class, able to take him down and keep him down and finish him there. Like all those little things, you know, like I said, talk shit on Bisping, but Bisping's a tough ass guy, and you know, George went up and weight and handled him.
Now my question is, everyone loves Conor McGregor. What do you think about this guy? I love a guy that will go in there and just talk shit.
Yeah, well, dude, number one, super entertaining. Number two, if you watch like the behind the scenes stuff with him and all, I really like him as a person. Like it's a whole shtick that he does out there. People need to figure that out. He's marketing himself. As a fighter, I think as a striker, the guy's amazing. You know, I don't like that he's one-dimensional and he doesn't have any grappling ability really.
He showed that last fight.
You know, well, look, everybody's known, and people can say what they want. I always, you know, I'll put it out there. I mean, I haven't been shy about it in the past. He was protected. Go check out his record. Every single person he fought in the beginning were strikers who he would have the advantage over. So why wouldn't you put him in there with Frankie? Why do you think Frankie Edgar never fought that guy? And Frankie was the man at that time because he would have just picked him up, put him on his head, and beat him down. So, and you saw that in the Chad Mendes fight. People say, "Oh, what about Chad Mendes?" What do you mean, what about Chad Mendes? Chad Mendes was actually sitting right there on that sofa, drinking a beer when they called him to do the fight. All right, he wasn't on that one, but he was on another sofa. And I ain't bullshitting. It was like 6, 7 days out. He hadn't even trained for the fight. He showed up, and what did he do? He beat the shit out of Conor for 2 rounds until he got tired. Yeah, and he's 135. He does fight 145. So, you know, but here's a guy, like I said, got up, no training whatsoever, showed himself well. He got tired. Even that fight, he didn't get knocked out. You know, Conor hit him. He was tired. You saw Chad just kind of, all right, I'm done. But, you know, that's the way it was. And then when he finally got on the ground for 3 seconds, he got choked immediately by Nate. You know, and Conor was losing the striking battle. So that's why he shot on Nate, remember, you know. And the second one, I thought Nate won that one too. You know, it was closer.
I think there's going to be a third fight today.
Oh, it has to be. It has to be. Like for me, Conor doesn't have much left. I know he retired. I think he's full of it. But
that's almost like WWE.
Yeah, he's just trying to get more money. But and whatever, God bless him. He's already raised the pay scale for, you know, he's changed the game. You know, so I like him. I'm a fan. I think he's good for the sport. I wish he had better grappling because it would extend his career if he was a little more well-rounded. He can never beat Khabib, or he can wish he can. He ain't gonna beat him unless he gets lucky and catches him with one. You know, then my thought process, if he really, really wants to fight Khabib, all right, Khabib beats the crap out of him again. Conor's no more now and can't worry about title talk anymore. Him and Cowboy would be a great fight. And that was signed, you know, to happen. Signed by Cowboy's side anyway. And Donald, if he chose to stand, Conor's got a great chance to knock him out. But Donald's grappling is sick. He's a high-level black belt. So if he decided to take Conor down, it would be over fast. Yeah, he's I'm telling you, guys can sleep on his jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu might be better than his striking. Like, that's how good Donald is. And, you know, so if he loses to Donald, now there's 3 straight losses. What else can you do with fucking Conor? Well, Nate. And Nate's sitting around not doing nothing, so he's going to get out and make another couple mil, you know.
Yeah, people always want to see that.
Yeah, of course. Because of the character and the point that Nate is going to walk in and just stand with him and go.
And he can match the shit talk.
Yeah, well, you know what's great about it is Conor can get in everybody's head. He can't get in Nate. They don't. That's what he does all day long. You know what I mean? And he's the type of guy too. Like, he's not going to get into a battle words. Fuck you, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Nick and Nate are hilarious. I love them. I'm a fan of both of them. I think they're great. You know, I wish they were a little busier, but whatever. It is what it is, you know.
All right, so we have a couple more questions, then we'll wrap this up. So we did talk earlier about the Dirt movie, the Motley Crue movie. I did read online that you did security for them. How true was the movie, and what is the wildest thing you can talk about?
Fortunately, I can beg my way out of this one because the Dirt, as you saw, was set when they started. I wasn't with them when they started, you know. Nicky was sober already when I was with the band, and in the movie, that he was not near sober at all, you know. So my time with the band and that movie are a little bit different. I can tell you this: Tommy did tell me about the Ozzy story and Snort Nancy and stuff like that. So that was true. Yeah, Ozzy was, well, I would think, and I mean, I guess you can check to verify. I mean, I know they changed up a few things in the movie, but the book was used as the guideline, and the band, you know, they wrote the book. So, and as you noticed, Nicky was really the ringleader, you know, and I mean, he really was the boss when I was there. He wrote the songs, not like he was bossing people around, but he really was like he was the dude in charge for real. Tommy, I don't even say Tommy was like second, because there really wasn't a second. Nicky was more of the guy that kind of said what direction they would go in. You know, popularity-wise in the band, I think, you know, Nicky and Tommy were the most popular too, because Nicky was kind of the captain, and Tommy just because he's become part of pop culture, you know. You know, Vince and Mick, you know, for obvious reasons. First of all, mixed personality. He's not going to be that guy, and you know, with the health issues he had. I love Mick. He was cool, real cool, and it was pretty wild every night. Just they would start every show when I was with him with "Kickstart My Heart," so that riff would start, and just seeing him. I mean, the guy had problems walking, but he would get out there and kill it every night. It was pretty wild.
Do you have anything you want to add, or anything you want to ask him?
You know, you got a big show coming up next weekend, and anything you want to say about that?
You want to plug anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, come to the, hopefully if you can make it, we're at Royal Farms Arena, April 6th. Doors are at 5:30, show starts at 6:30. Excuse me, we have 11 fights on the card, 4 title fights on the card. We have the 135-pound belt is Greg Fisher is fighting Carlos Vera. Greg is a 125-pound champion, and he won the 135-pound belt last show. There's a guy, he's not a ground control guy, but another guy that I believe is on the verge. The only thing holding him back, it would be a 25-pounder, because you know the division's kind of in flux, which is, I think, why he wanted to move up and start trying to fight there. And Carlos Vera is a Ryan Hall guy, so if you're fight fans, like the guy with the slick leg locks was on the Ultimate Fighter. He's out of Virginia. You know, Ryan's his coach. Darren Costa, he's from like Glen Burnie, Annapolis side. He's going to fight. He's our 185-pound champion. He asked me for this fight, and the belt's vacant, so I figured we'll make it a title fight. But he had lost to a kid, Charles Gamble, from Ellicott City earlier in his career, so he wanted to rematch him to try to get that one back. Mike Otero, you know, he's a big fan favorite, is fighting John Hughes. John's moved to South Carolina now, but he was a Virginia guy. Tough dude. He's won his last 3 in the Shogun cage. And then you have Tucker Lutz, who's fighting Cole, and we touched on that one earlier. So, you know, 4 title fights. You got Big Ryan returning. He's fighting a guy, Marino Eatman, out of Miami. And Marino is good. You know, he's I think he's 5-2, which I believe is Ryan's record as well. And he's fought in a show called Titan a couple times as well. And Titan, you know, us, LFA, you know, their shows that like they'll pull people up. Like right now, out of Shogun, actively, you know, guys that are fighting on the regular. Carl Roberson, you know, is one of our, you know, guys came from us, and he's won 2 or 3 with them. Dan Iggy, his name is IGE. He just fought on the last card they had and massacred his guy. He's like won 3 in a row. Looks good. His last fight with us was against Binky, and Sadiq Yusuf. Sadiq, his last fight for us, he did like the Harlem Shake. Man, he hit this guy, dropped him on his ass, and like shook his shoulders at him, and then cracked him and finished him. It's like one of our best highlights. But Sadiq is, I've watched, I think he's won, I know he's won 2 because I've seen that, and he's getting ready to fight on this Philly card. So that kid's tough, like Sadiq Yusuf. He's a guy to keep an eye out on too.
All right, so again, thanks, John, for being on the show.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Check out Ground Control. Check out Shogun Fight 21. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in every week for the next show.